Roblox has a lot of games based on vampires, werewolves, ghosts, and more terrifying creatures. And what's crazy to think is that these creatures were once believed to be real. And even till this day, people think some of these creatures do exist. Like, for example, ghosts. Now, there's a lot of different ghost type games. There's ones about hunting ghosts, ones about being possessed. But now the question that I always wondered was, where did ghosts actually come from? When did this whole idea that when a person dies, they would turn into this spiritual entity? Well, before we go to our modern telling of ghosts, we actually had to dive all the way back to 3000 BCE because the beliefs of ghosts, or the concept of a person rising up from the dead and tormenting the living, has actually been a thing for quite a while now. The Sumerians and Babylonians believed in Gittims, which were pretty much spirits of the dead who lived in the underworld, and it was said that if a person was not properly buried, their spirit would come out to haunt the living. So ghosts have been a thing for quite a while. And even in ancient Rome, the Romans would actually believe in household spirits like the Lares or the Lemures. They would even do Lemuria festivals to uphold the restless spirits. So the belief in ghosts has always been a thing, but what about actually seeing one? Like actual proof of something? Well, that actually became a thing in the 1800s when ghost photography started to become popular. So there's this guy here called William H. He claimed that he could take pictures of people and their lost loved ones. Like, this is a picture of William with the supposed ghost of his cousin in the background. We got this image here of a lady with her child who unfortunately passed. We got this guy with his lost loved one. But what's the most famous ghost photo is that of Abraham Lincoln. So yeah, this is his wife here, Mary Todd Lincoln. She was the one that requested this photo, in which in the back you do see Abraham Lincoln there. And many people believed that this was actually his ghost. But now, were these actual real ghosts? Was William actually able to take pictures of spirits? Well, no. In 1869, Mumbler's fraud was discovered and he was charged. Yet turns out these spirits were actually just double exposures of previous clients from photographic plates that were improperly cleaned. So it just kind of gave the illusion of a ghostly entity just kind of watching. But yeah, this, along with Harry Houdini, books like The Christmas Carol, all popularized ghosts and the idea that they were real even further. And then as for the whole ghost hunting hobby, well, that all started because of the movie Ghostbusters. Vampires. So vampires are very popular in Roblox. Like, there's a ton of different games about them. Because what's not to like? They're very fast, they got cool looking fangs, they can snap your neck, they have super hearing where they can hear people, and they can feed on blood. Did I kill him? Ah! Oh, this guy's good. Ow! Okay, yeah, that guy's a good fighter. He's just killing all the vampires. Yeah, vampires are really cool. But now the question is, where did they actually come from? Well, they date back about 2,000 years ago. There's a lot of vampire-like folklore in different civilizations. Like Mesopotamia and Babylon had a creature known as Lamashtu, which was known to eat men and drink their blood, disturbing sleep, bringing nightmares, and essentially being a bringer of disease, sickness, and death. Yeah, very vampire-like. But also, ancient Greece and Rome had stories like Lamia, which was known to be a beautiful woman who would drain men's blood and energy. China had the Jiangshi, and then India had Vitala. Pretty much every civilization believed in some sort of blood-drinking creature. But when did the humanoid-looking vampire start to become a thing? Well, that's when we talk about the vampire epidemic in the 1700s. Yeah, so there's a cartoon right here that states, "Believe in vampires, Rhode Islanders who are sure that they do exist. Instances told of where the living have been attacked and preyed upon by these representatives of an unseen world." Now, this is a satirical comic that was made for their newspapers, but the whole vampire panic was actually a real thing. Yeah, so this is an actual newspaper article. It reads, "The belief is that persons dead of consumption leave their graves and suck the blood of members of their own families, dooming them to a like fate." So yeah, they believed that dead people were coming out of their graves, sucking the blood of their victims, and then those victims would later die. Yeah, there's even this one famous gravestone that belonged to a young woman who was accused of vampirism. Yet she was already dead, but they found fresh blood in her heart, and so this was enough evidence for the townspeople to believe that, yeah, she was actually a vampire. In reality though, a lot of people were dying due to tuberculosis, which is a well-known contagious disease. And yeah, the stories of creatures rising up from the dead pile up. There's this 800-year-old skeleton found stabbed through the chest with an iron rod. But now, when did vampires become so aristocratic? You know, clean, elegant, and and rich? Well, that all started from the book known as The Vampire, which was written back in 1819. And then as for the name Dracula, well, that name was actually taken from a real-life person known as Vlad the Impaler, or their full name Vlad Dracula. Yet some people even believed him to be some sort of vampire. Yet it says here it was rumored that Vlad once dipped his bread into the blood of his impaled victims. Yeah, no, this guy, he was insane. But yeah, that name Dracula was taken as it was a pretty cool name. It literally has two meanings. It means son of the dragon, and in Romania, it means devil. Yeah, I mean, pretty much over the years, vampires have been romanticized. Like now in our modern time, we have Twilight here. I wonder what's gonna be next. Werewolves. So werewolves are definitely the most popular creatures on Roblox. A lot of it is thanks to the furries and also David Baszucki, that one time that his avatar was a werewolf. But they're actually pretty cool. They've got super speed, they can smell nearby victims, and also, okay, I realize that this looks ridiculous, alright? Roblox is not the best at interpreting these creatures sometimes. I'm gonna eat you. What the heck am I doing here? Why am I shaking my butt like that? Oh, what is this? Can I like carry you? I can. Alright, let's go. Dinner. Yeah, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be shocked that the most popular games are the furry looking ones. But werewolves are still cool, okay? Now, where did they actually come from? Well, the earliest accounts we can date back to is from one of the Greek mythology stories in which one time there was a king named King Lachion. And one day he was housing the gods such as Zeus, and for whatever reason, King Lachion decided to serve the gods human flesh. Now, as punishment for this, Zeus transformed him into a half-wolf. Now, because his name was Lachion, the word lycanthropy was made, which stands for werewolfism. Now, throughout the years, there's many supposed werewolf attacks. There's a few cases like the Giles Garnier story, in which he was found guilty of crimes of lycanthropy and witchcraft, and burned at the stake on January 18th, 1574. Yeah, apparently there was more than 50 witnesses that saw him attack and also turn from a human into a werewolf. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but werewolves were actually seen as a real threat, similar to witches and vampires. There was many cases of supposed actual werewolves. Like there's a person known as Peter Stump who was accused of werewolfery, and because of this, they were also beheaded. Now, aside from werewolfery and witchcraft, I mean, he was also a cannibalist and also an alleged serial killer. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like if Jeffrey Dahmer lived in this century, he'd probably be framed as a werewolf or vampire as well. From what I've read, it just seems like these people were already messed up somehow. But yeah, because of all these historical accounts, literature arose, and thus the werewolf book was written in the year 1896. But the more modern imagery of the werewolf was actually inspired from the movie The Wolfman. It's this film that popularized the whole belief of becoming cursed during the full moon, and the werewolf's weakness was silver. And then I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what Twilight did to them, but we gotta go back. The Headless Horseman. So this entity doesn't really have much Roblox games based on it, but what is popular on October is this avatar right here, known as the Headless Horseman, which costs 31,000 Robux. Now, people don't really care for the avatar per se, people pretty much just want it for the headless feature, but looking at this thing did get me wondering, what is the actual story of the Headless Horseman? Well, it actually had a different name, known as the Irish Dullahan, which is pretty much the earliest version of the Headless Horseman. It would ride around on a black horse and would carry its own rotting head under one arm. Not only that, but he would also use a human spine as a whip, and it was also said that the Dullahan would often appear when someone was about to die. And now this story of the Dullahan only became more popular when a book known as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow came out in the year 1820, and the story actually takes place in a Dutch village known as Sleepy Hollow, which is pretty much just modern day New York. And then within that story is a ghostly horseman said to be the spirit of a decapitated soldier, which it would make sense that it was a soldier because around that time period there was often stories of Weitergangers who were soldiers that would often haunt old battlefields in which they died on, and so these stories would eventually pass on, and thus the novel of Sleepy Hollow was created. But yeah, what's your favorite Halloween monster? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.